So here's one way to know if your HOA is screwing you or not. So a friend of mine was telling me that when he used to live in a townhouse community, the HOA president actually lived right next door to him and walked by and saw him painting his front door. Didn't say anything, just walked into the house. And a couple of days later, he gets a notice in the mail that says that he was in violation of the covenants because he had painted the door the wrong color. Now, that seems kind of a ridiculous thing that the HOA president literally saw him painting the front door and didn't say anything. He could have said something in the exact moment and said, hey, listen, you're painting this the wrong color. I think you need to take a look at this, or need to pick a different color, right? But instead, they chose to ignore it and then proceed to send them a notice. How ridiculous is it that they will look at you, see what you're doing, ignore it in the moment, but then go and send you a notice? And this probably stems from a couple of things. One, likely they just don't want the confrontation, right? It's easier for them to send a piece of mail and don't want to have to say something in the moment and feel like they're policing the neighborhood. But on the other hand, it seems like you could save people a lot of a headache if you just addressed it in the moment. Another motive could be that they were just looking for, whatever the fine was, 25, 50 bucks or whatever. But at the end of the day, it causes headaches in people when you just screw them over like that. I would imagine that they would feel appreciative to save them, the fine, save them from painting the rest of the door, and save them from having to repaint it a different color. At that point, you could just say something in the moment. I would imagine that this is a very common experience, that HOAs notice something that's happening in the moment but don't want to address it, and so it's easier for them just to send a message later on and give them a warning or give them a fine or whatever. This also reminds me of a story of when I used to live in an HOA in Colorado, and 2 weeks after I bought the house, literally 2 weeks after I bought it, I get a notice that says I needed to paint the front of the house. I needed to paint the garage door specifically. I was, first house that I bought. I didn't have the money to go out and spend on this. And I just thought to myself, this is ridiculous. You couldn't have warned the person that lived here for 8 years before me that their garage door needed to be painted. And yet here I am having to be the one just because I'm the new buyer. It's stuff like that that I think is what causes people to really hate an HOA. So if you are on a board, do the kind thing, do the right thing. Like there's no reason that you can't just stop and look at somebody and say, hey, listen, you're painting this the wrong color. That's unfortunate, but you're gonna have to undo that according to the CC&Rs that you agreed to. So rather than having to send you a fine later, I'd rather you just take care of it right now. I'm curious though, have you ever been in a situation like that? Have you ever been screwed over by your HOA?